Hey y'all, Mike with Cardboard Kingdom. Welcome back to another Disney Lorcana market update video. Today is the 2nd of January, and today we're going to be doing a video that is way past due. That is the October and November monthly market recap update. So these are videos that I had historically done every month, have been slacking at the end of the year to get these out. So I'm going to do a combined October and November video here, and then we will have December followed up very shortly, and then we'll be back into kind of a more normal rotation with these style of videos coming out as they should closer to the end of a given month. But I did owe you guys October, November, and I didn't want to skip over it, and so that is what we have here today. Now, obviously, I took a little break there at the end of the year in terms of content on the channel. I'll be getting back into more of a natural progression and consistent upload rotation here. Just lots of time with the family, all the kids home, wife home, etc. So honestly, just not that much time for videos. Got a lot of family reps in. So with that being said, we'll kind of get back to it to start the year here. So getting into the October and November monthly market recap, we made some changes to just kind of what I'm monitoring and what I think is relevant to you guys. There are some cards that we had included that I don't think they're really worth tracking at a monthly from a monthly perspective, and I feel like there's a couple cards that need to be added. And so with that being said, the cards that we're going to be adding to the rotation are the D23 Snow Queen, Elsa Snow Queen 2022, the only first edition Elsa in all of Lorcana. Definitely one of the cards with the most amount of prominence, the cards that Ravensburger went to market, right? The first cards that were ever introduced. Ton of collectability there, ton of provenance, and one of the most valuable cards in all of Lorcana. So we're going to be tracking that. In addition, we're going to be tracking the serialized out of 500 Golden Mickey Mouse that was awarded all of 2024 to our top 4, top 8 finishers at our DLC events, as well as at Continentals, and as we get into Worlds and so on. We're going to continue to track the price of that particular card. And then, and I mean, on those guys, those sales are pretty low, right? So there's not going to be a ton of volume, but I think it is worth tracking. And then one we're going to be getting rid of is the Ursula Deceiver of All, Enchanted from Into the Inklands. That card has always had a pretty good value, and it's remained pretty consistent, but it's just not that valuable from a collector's point of view. It's very valuable as it relates to playing the game. It's a very overpowered card. It's very entrenched in the meta when people run an Emerald deck, specifically Emerald Steel. And so I know a lot of you guys who watch my channel are more on the collector side of things. And that particular card, it's if you're trying to complete like an Inkland set, or you just like Ursula, right? Then you can go out and get it. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad value, but it's just not something that makes sense for us to continue to track in a presentation style like this. So that is kind of where we're at in terms of changes going into this presentation, and we're going to kind of break everything up into 3 different sections. We're going to have trophy and promo cards, we're going to have sealed products, and then we're going to have set cards. Obviously, not too many set cards. Once again, I think there are some that are pretty collectible, or there are some that are definitely collectible, not as much in the meta, but are still commanding a premium. And so we're going to take a look at some of those. Some of the ones that are more playable, like the Tinkerbell, for example, or the Maui, like those, the prices on those are high, and they're propped up because a lot of people want to use them in the game. There are some cards like Carefree Surfer Stitch, for example, definitely going to be in some decks, but not many. Definitely not part of the overall meta. And so I think a card like that, really driving on the collectability side of things, the set cards still make sense to track. So this is kind of the order that we're going to be talking about the cards in today, and then moving forward, kind of setting them up into 3 different sections: the trophy or promo cards, the sealed products, and then the set cards. And right now on the sealed side, we're talking first chapter and our set 1 and set 2. The other sealed stuff, it's going to be a long time until any of that is really worth tracking, right? We'll continue to add it in as it increases in value and maybe starts to dry up a little bit more. Right now, apart from set 1 and set 2, and honestly even set 2, there's plenty of it out there. But there's plenty of product out there, right? And so I don't want to track anything that's we don't really expect to see any movement there for a certain amount of time. So First card up in today's video, the Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor trophy card that we discussed on the front end there, serialized out of 500. Just a little bit of backstory for those of you who may be new to Lorcana. This card is a card that's awarded to the top 8 or top 4, depending on the size of the event, for all of the Disney Lorcana Challenge events. And so these are regional events. They had them kind of all over the country. They had them in Chicago, they had them in Dallas, they had them in Seattle, they had them in LA, they had them in Vegas. I don't think there was really any on the East Coast, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've looked at the rotation. They also had them overseas in Europe. They had 4 or 5 over there as well, I believe. And so this is a trophy card. It's very, very valuable. It's one of the most valuable cards in all of Lorcana, and it is the iconic art of the Brave Little Tailor, and it's serialized and it's gold foiled. And that's kind of where this card comes from. So it doesn't come out of a booster pack. You have no way to pull it. You had to win it at the first, round of tournaments here in 2024, and going into 2025. I believe there will still be some available. Now, a little bit like, lore or backstory here. It is obviously serialized out of 500. So that means there were 500 printed and in existence. There have been rumors that some of the cards were not up to the quality that Ravensburger wanted in place. And so a certain number of them may or may not have been destroyed based on the fact that, they didn't know if they were going to need to award 500. And there were some that just weren't that good coming off the printer. And so they destroyed them. Now, I am of the belief that, look, if you're going to serialize this thing out of 500, there needs to be 500 given out. You can't serialize it out of 500 and then give out 324 and say, hey, some were destroyed or whatever. I think that kind of ruins the validity of the card. So, who knows if those rumors are true. Ravensburger has never confirmed those. That was just, it was rumored, and I heard it on several occasions that was the case. But right now it's serialized out of 500. I believe that there will be 500 in existence. Right now there's probably closer to 100 to 200, given the amount of events that have happened that this card has been awarded. They are continuing to award it here in 2025, based on the fact that the winner or the top placers of the NA Continentals, which is kind of the in North America Championships, will be awarded this card, and then we'll see what happens as we get into Worlds and the world specific pricing. But for now, this card is definitely one of the most limited cards in Lorcana. It's a trophy card, which inherently has more value, and you can get them right now for around $14,000. So there was, and in November there was 2 sales, 14,500 and 14,750. When this card was originally brought onto the market, the winners of the cards were asking for 75,000 after the first Disney Lorcana Challenge. I think that was back in maybe May or June. And I think there was a sale at 40,000, a public sale at 40,000. And then since then the price has kind of been gradually decreasing. In my opinion, guys, this card is a sell. I think they're going to continue to release these to winners. Right, I think there's going to be more and more on the market, and I just don't think that it's a $14,000 card. My price target for this card would be closer to 5,000, maybe 7,500. I do not think it's worth 14,000, and that's why I would be a seller for this particular card. Now, do not take that as me saying I don't like this card. This card is going to have a lot of provenance. If Lorcana continues to deliver at a high level and grow, this card is going to command a premium. First ever serialized Mickey card. There's a lot going for, right? So don't take this as me saying this card is not valuable. It is. I just, at the end of the day, I don't think it's a $15,000 card, right? And so I do expect the price to come down. And so if I was holding a golden Mickey, I would be a seller of this card right now, just based on the fact that I think it's going to come down in price. But I can't see the future, right? This is just my own personal opinion. Form your own opinion. Do not take anything that I'm saying is taking it to taking it is I guess just the word, because I can't see the future, right? And so at the end of the day, you have to make your own decision. But I don't think it's going to be a $15,000 card. So with that being said, getting moved over to the Elsa Snow Queen D23 2022 promo. This is one of my favorite cards in all of Lorcana. Full transparency, this is a card that I own. I do not own the gold serialized Mickey, and so there's some bias there, right? So I just always want to make sure you guys are aware of that. For this card, for raw sales, right? So ungraded. This could also include a PSA 9. I included in the raw price. We had a low sale in October of 3,400. We had a high sale in October of 3,800, and then in November it dropped quite a bit. We saw a low sale of 2,400 and a high sale of 2,400. There's only one sale, right? So it's just 2,400 for the raw side of things. Now, when we move over to the graded side of things for this card, it has a PSA 10 pop report right now of 386 in existence. It's got a gem mint rate of 64%. Now, the copy of this card, the lore behind this card is that there are 900 of these in total population. There's 6 of these cards that came in the box set for this particular release, the D23 2022 collector's box set. There were 900 that were made, 900 that were sold, and so, you know, roughly 35% of the total population of these cards has gotten a PSA 10. I think overall it's closer to like 600 that have been graded. Obviously 64% of the time they're getting a gem mint grade. The low sale for October was 7,000. High sale was 8,000. Moving over to November, a little bit of a decrease. 6,500 for the low sale and 7,000 for the high sale. The lowest available on the market at the time of making this this spreadsheet, or this presentation rather, was 8,500 was the lowest buy it now as it relates to the Elsa Snow Queen. This is one I have listed as a hold. I would not be a seller at this price because I think that, but I'm very long term bullish on Lorcana, and so I think that this card is, honestly, I think if I had to pick one card that's going to be the most valuable card, not including the 1 of 1 Golden Mickey that's going to be awarded to Who Wins Worlds this year, I think this card will be the most valuable long-term card in all of Lorcana, even over the Golden Mickey, because I think the first edition stamp, the fact that it was the first set to ever come to market for Lorcana that you could buy, it's what they introduced. Elsa's become kind of this huge chase in all of Lorcana, right? Whether it's the first chapter or it's the D23 box set, and once again, that's a limited amount, and they're hard to grade. First edition stamp. I just think that this card is kind of the grail of the grails right now. Once again, excluding that World's winner who's going to get the Golden Mickey 1 of 1. That will be undoubtedly the most valuable card in all of Lorcana probably ever. And so this card will not touch that card, but at the end of the day, I do think this is it's a very, very strong card. But with that being said, I mean, this card has doubled in price since I bought it a few months ago, and so that's why I have it listed as a hold. Right? I don't know if I would necessarily be a buyer at 8,500 right now. Not to say, you know, long term, I think that's a fine play, but that's so much risk. It's gone up quite a bit here in the short term, and so, you know, I just don't know if I'd be a buyer at 8,500 right now. You know, I paid, once again, half that just a few months ago to get a mine is technically a BGS 9.5, but it's got very, very high subgrades. I'm hoping to get it to a BGS 10, which would put it in kind of a league of its own, which I'm very excited for. But nevertheless, that is it on the D23 Elsa Snow Queen 2022 promo. Next up, one of my favorite cards in all of Lorcana, a little bit more accessible than the previous two that we talked about, but equally awesome in terms of artwork, provenance, etc. We have the Stitch Rockstar from the first set or store championships. October raw price was $315 on the low side, $400 on the high side. November we were at $337 on the low side, $400 on the high side. Percent change since July, we had a 13% increase on the low sale, 4% decrease on the high sale. Getting into the graded side of things, PSA 10 pop report of 492. Still just not a lot of these out here. They are very, very hard to grade. Overall, the for November, and I lost some data here, so that's why the numbers look a little bit weird. Right now, it's got a 40% gem mint rate, which is down 5% since July, since we started tracking. So it's getting harder and harder to grade as it increases in value and as more come in for grading. The PSA 10 low sale for November, or for October, was 561. Shout out to whoever got that in October. That was a steal, one of the best buys of the month for sure. In November, the low sale was 850, and the high sale was around 900 for both months here, both October and November. That is down 24% though overall since July. Now, to put that into perspective, when we started tracking everything in July and doing these monthly market recaps, I think Stitch was around like $1,000 to $1,500 in a PSA 10 copy, but this card was going for upwards of $4,000 to $5,000 when it first came out. Now, the first PSA 10s on the market are always going to command the biggest premium, but with that being said, these cards are They're incredibly hard to grade, and I think they're going to hold a lot of prominence moving forward. And so at the 850 to 900 mark, I have it listed as a buy, and I feel the same way on the raw side, guys. Now, once again, keep in mind, if you do buy a raw copy that you're looking to get graded, this card grades incredibly hard, right? 40% was the PSA 10 rate as of November. That's very, very low, right? Especially when we're talking about Lorcana. And so at the end of the day, if you buy a raw copy, the likelihood, I mean, if you buy 10, then in theory, 4 of them would get a PSA 10. And so just keep that in mind if you're buying a raw copy. This is one of the few that I do not mind paying the premium to get a PSA 10 rather than grading it myself. As someone who does grade pretty frequently, I think the low sale or high sale for November, for example, 337 or 400 for a raw copy, essentially just getting a PSA 10 copy and just doubling the price on that sounds good to me. I think the multiplier should be much higher than a 2x on this card, or maybe a little bit over that. But at the end of the day, it's the first trophy card that was ever awarded in all of Lorcana. It's the first enchanted card that was ever awarded in all of Lorcana. It was the first kind of organized play tournament in all of Lorcana, and I just think all of those combined with the fact that it's got an awesome IP attached to it and Stitch, the Rockstar art is iconic. It's an amazing, I mean, this card is just gorgeous. I love this card. Full transparency, I own several of them. I'm a huge fan of it, major proponent, and it's a mainstay in my collection. I'm not selling any of the ones that I currently have. And then it was my favorite artist in Lorcana, Nicholas Cole, was the artist behind this card, and so for me personally, that just adds another benefit to it. But at the end of the day, I think this card is one for the long term holders out there. It's a fantastic buy right now, especially if you can get a PSA 10 copy for $850. That makes a lot of sense to me. One that does not command the same premium, but I think will have pretty good relevance in terms of long term trajectory. We have the Ursula Sea Witch Queen Store Championship. So this was Rockstar Stitch was the first set champs. This was the second. What's relevant to note with this particular card is, first of all, it's very hard to grade, 30% gem mint rate, so even harder than the Stitch card. It's gone down 4%. When we started tracking this in July, it was at 34%, so it's getting harder. But then one quick caveat here that's worth mentioning before we go through some of the sales data is when the first two set champs, so Rockstar Stitch and Ursula Sea Witch Queen, these were each awarded to the top 4 finishers at these store championships. So if you went to your store, you competed, the top 4 people were going to be awarded this card, both this card and the Stitch card for the respective tournaments. Moving forward, now that we've had another set champs card, or have we had 2 more now? We've had the Mirabelle, just the Mirabelle, I think. So we've had 3 set champs thus far. The Mirabelle was an 8 of, so the top 8 were awarded that particular card. And so that's why I think that, this Ursula Sea Witch Queen, while it doesn't have a lot of value in terms of the raw price or even the PSA 10 price, I think that it's one that's going to increase in value over time. And the fact that it's a 4 of versus an 8 of, and it's the second set champs rather than the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. as we get down the road, I think that this card is going to command a significant premium. And I think that it's very valuable because it's a trophy card. It's a popular character like Ursula. It's very hard to grade, and there's just not that many out there. And I think that at the end of the day, this card is going to be one that increases in value just simply based on some of those parameters. So with that being said, low sale for October was 85, high sale was 105 for October, November 89, and then 104. So kind of staying the same from where it was. Now, you see the percent change since July there. A good cautionary tale here. As these cards come out, they're always going to be at their most valuable, especially these trophy cards or these promo cards. You're going to want to wait to see the drop off, right, where the supply increases, the demand diminishes, and then you're able to pick it up. Like right now, it's in a solid spot. I have it listed as a buy because this card is one that's incredibly cheap. You can get it for under $100 pretty consistently, and I think at that price, that makes a ton of sense. Once again, PSA 10 pop is only at 188 of 93% since July. The card was brand new. Not really a surprise there. PSA 10 low sale was 400. PSA 10 high sale was 450. So this is more the PSA 10 multiple that you would kind of expect to see, right? More of like a 4 to 5x in the overall price for a card that's very, very hard to grade. Only 188 on the market. Now, there's this Pop report number has a lot of room to grow. There is without a doubt more of lease cards in existence than the Stitch in existence. And so you see the Stitch is already at 492. Now he's been out longer, right? He's been out for, roughly 90 days longer, 3 months of a head start on the Ursula. But this number will continue to go up as the card becomes more valuable. So once this card becomes a $150 card, $200 card, etc., whether that's this year, next year, who knows when that's going to happen, the overall pop count is going to continue to go up. Now it's a hard card to grade, so it's not going to go up at the same rate as maybe a Stitch. But it didn't. Not that Stitch is easy to grade, but you get what I'm saying there. It's going to go up at a pretty slow rate, and so this is just one that's going to have a relatively limited PSA 10 pop count. Does that end at 500, 700? Does it get to 1,000? I doubt it. But this kind of gives you an idea of what this card kind of looks like long term, and I think it makes a lot of sense to buy it right now. So that is my recommendation there. Next up, we have, and we're going to speed this up a little bit. We've already been going for 20 minutes, and I'm about halfway through. So Mickey Mouse Playful Sorcerer. This is one that was given out at the D23 2024 convention. Right now, the card raw is going for $155 in October, $190 for the high side. Low 155, high 190. November 2024, we had a low sale of 165, high sale of 190. Pretty stark decreases since August, since we've been tracking this card. That's as expected, right? Nothing really. Those numbers are kind of irrelevant because the card just came out. So very similar to the Ursula there in terms of like the pop report number going up. It's irrelevant, but it's here, so it is what it is. PSA 10 pop report on this card, 786. This is kind of surprising to see, given that it's a card that came out in August and it's already at a number that's higher than, like, that Stitch, for example. Now there's just way less of those out there, but the Stitch hasn't even hit 500 yet, and it's been out for an additional 5 months or whatever it is. PSA 10 gem mint rate is 46%, so once again continuing that trend of cards that are very hard to grade. PSA 10 low sale was 212 for November, and the PSA 10 high sale was $400. I think that $212 is a steal for whoever got that. I mean, you're barely paying over raw price, and that was for a card that doesn't even get a gem mint grade 50% of the time. So within that price range, I think it makes sense. Now, this card is relatively new, right? And so, like we learned with the Ursula, those cards raw were going for over $400 when they first came out. Now the card has been under $100 for months. It makes sense to wait on these cards. I think we're at a fine point if you want to pick it up and you can get it for around 150, maybe a little bit lower. I think it makes sense, but I just think we've got to give this card some time. I think better times are ahead in terms of pricing, especially in the long-term side of things. But right now, I'm just holding strong here. This is a card that I do not own yet, and so just a heads up on the on kind of the mic bias meter. I'm trying to be transparent there. This is a card that I do not own. I think it's a hold. And then just for clarification, I do not own the Ursula Store Championship yet either. Did try and win one, got very close, ended up having to leave because I did not know. This is the first ever competitive TCG event I attended, and I just did not know how much time it took. I was there for like 6 hours, got to top 8. They were doing a lunch break or like a dinner break type thing, and it was so late. I gotta go. I had to bow out. So someone got a free top 4 on my behalf because I had to drop. So shout out to them. Moving into the sealed side of things, guys, this is where one of the kind of hot spots of the hobby is in terms of Lorcana. For a sealed case of Disney Lorcana, the first chapter, low sale in October was $900. Low sale in November was $1,050. Since July, that's almost a 30% increase comparing November to July. On the high side of things, October, $1,200 for a high sale. November, $1,450 for a high sale. Once again, a 35% increase since we started tracking this in July. When you're looking at an individual booster box case, low sale for October was $250. Low sale for October was around $280. Move over to November, you see a pretty steady increase here to $280 on the high side or on the low side for November, $310 for the high side. For November, and then percent change 28% and 22% respectively. I think that I have this listed as a hold because there is still some uncertainty with this product. And so if you're this far into the video and you're new to Lorcana, Ravensburger has never made an official announcement on whether they're going to reprint this product or not. I personally don't think that anything on the screen here in terms of booster boxes or booster box cases are going to be reprinted. I think that they've done a good job rolling out some other products that have had this in it, and I just do not think that it needs a full another reprint. And so if I knew with certainty that there would never be another reprint, I would have this as a buy. The fact that I don't, I have it as a hold because it's gone up so much here recently. Since July, I mean, across the board, it's gone up 20 to 30%. That's a big increase, right, in just a few months. And so that's why, I want to be a little bit cautious here and not tell everyone to just go out and get a bunch of the first chapter. But once again, if I had clarification that there was never going to be another reprint, I think that this box would go to 500 in the short term very, very, very quickly. And so I think it's going to kind of creep there, right now in December, and this will obviously be updated in the December recap video. Box price is around like $350 now for an individual box, and so it's continued to trend up, right? And I think that we're just at a point where Ravensburger is gonna have to set the record straight. Are they gonna reprint it? Are they not? They've said historically that they've done it once, and it was a very hard project to accomplish, but they're glad that they did it. I personally don't think they're going back to the first chapter to reprint it, but never say never, and they have not. They have not given us any sort of clarification. So just a heads up there that's why I have it listed as a hold. If I knew there was going to be no reprint and you feel confident that there's going to be no reprint, then I think it makes sense to go out and get whatever makes sense for you and your collection. Rise of the Floodborn, short and sweet here. Low sale for a sealed case for October, $524. High sale $650. November low sale $550 for a case, high sale $680, up about 10% roughly across both low and high for sales since July. So a little bit of growth here. This is a product that we've continued to see be available, whether it's through the Disney Store, Best Buy. A lot of different places have had this product for sale. It is definitely drying up, right? And it'll be the next to go after the first chapter. But it is seeing just slower growth in the first chapter, which, we would all expect. Looking at the individual box prices, we are at $130 low sale for October. We had an influx of product come on the market for November down to $120. High sale for each respective month, $160 and $150. That's essentially flat looking back to July. And so once again, not a ton of change here, not a ton of movement, but I do at least want to include Rise of the Floodborn because I want to have multiple sealed options in here. And I think Rise of the Floodborn, in my opinion, is the most undervalued set. I think it's a set that is the least printed. I think that it's got iconic princesses in it from a collectability and chase perspective down the road, and there's no enchanted locations in here, which I think is another added bonus. And I just think that this set is going to do amazing over time. It's going to take time to get there, right? There's plenty in existence, and so it's going to take some time. But I just think Rise of the Floodborn is set up for success long term. There's a lot of underlying factors there that I like. Last but not least, in terms of the sealed side of things, we have the D23 2024 collector's box. Low sale for October was $300. Low sale for November was $250. High sale for October was $350. High sale for November was $300. Percent change since August, up about 30%, median across the board for these. This is a box that I have listed as a hold because it's gone up so much once again over the last few months. Anytime something's gone up 20, 30, 40%, you don't necessarily want to be looking to buy it because at the end of the day, that's a substantial gain and you might see some sort of retrace there. But this is a product that I think is going to have prominence moving forward. I think it's got a lot of really, really cool cards in it. It's got a lot of playable cards in it. And so I think that it'll be a good test in terms of long-term value. The playable cards are going to get phased out set after set after set. And so as this becomes more of a collector-only item, what does that look like? One card in here that I'm a huge fan of, that I have a lot of copies of, and if you've been around the channel for a while, you are very familiar with. The Brave Little Tailor in this box, the Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor artwork, is the first enchanted version of that card. And that card is obviously kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of the Pikachu of Lorcana. It's like the face of Lorcana. It's on the first chapter packs. It's all over any of the merchandise they have put together and things like that, like the banners and the LGSs and everything. It's obviously on the trophy card. It's Brave Little Tailor Mickey Mouse is definitely one of the most iconic arts in all of Lorcana, if not the most iconic art. And that is the first version with an enchanted foil on it. And I think that's going to give it some increased value. And honestly, the card's just gorgeous. I'm a major fan of the D23 version of that card in particular because it is so awesome. So that's where we're at with this box currently. Wrapping it up, guys, a couple, I think 3 set cards to look out here. Elsa, Spirit of Winter, kind of the chase of all set cards, right? Has the Elsa Premium. We had a low sale in October of 778. We had a low sale in November of 766. We had a high sale in October of 945. And then a high sale of 855 in November. Percent change since July. The floor is up a little bit, 8%. The high side is down a little bit. The ceiling is down a little bit, 8%, in terms of overall sales since July. And then we look at the PSA data. This is up at 2,048. When we first started tracking this, I think the total PSA 10 count was like, it was creeping up to 1,500, and then since then we've had another 500 on top of that. 2048. If I had to guess, I feel like this card will probably end somewhere around 3-ish thousand, maybe. I think it's got another 30% to go. The PSA 10 gem mint rate on this card is very high, 68%. When you compare that to the other cards, obviously much higher than any other card that we've looked at. Now, with that being said, it has gotten 3% harder since we started looking in July. So in July, this card got a gem mint grade 71% of the time. It is down at 68. And once again, something I'll mention here is I believe that as these cards increase in value, PSA's gem mint rate will continue to decrease. They have a PSA guarantee on anything that they put in a slab, and the higher and more valuable the card becomes, the more risk is associated with their PSA guarantee. And I think that it's a bad model, a bad system, and I think that it does, it is reflected on the gem mint rate. If you look at something like vintage Pokemon in the beginning, when the cards had little to no value, compared to now, the gem mint rates have, I mean, it's just a down and to the right as the value has gone up and to the right. And so I think that there's a direct correlation there. Terrible model, terrible practice. But at the end of the day, it definitely is reflecting the grades, and it's gone down 3%, right? And over a 2,000 total pop count, that's a very low sample size, but given what we've seen on the vintage Pokemon side of things, I think that I believe that thesis to be true. October 2024 PSA 10 high sale, our low sale was 1,200, high sale was 1,500. When we move over in November, respectively, we're at 1,300 and 2,000. So we did get a PSA 10 sale back up to 2,000, which is up 20% since July, and the floor is up 5% since July. So a card that in the PSA 10 copy seen a little bit of growth here since July. So over the last 6 months, I guess 5 months when you're looking at it through this particular view, the high side's up, the low side's up. When you look at the raw, though, on the high side, you're down a little bit. And overall, I mean, when you average it out, you remain pretty flat on the raw side over the last 5-ish months or so, which I think is fair. Overall, I think this card is a buy. This card was selling raw for over 1,500 earlier in 2024. Or around 1,500. I had sales around that number for a raw copy. So, PSA 10s were well over 2,000. I think that all the first chapter reprints and restocks and everything that we saw in early 2024 hurt the price of Elsa a lot, right? As the game grew, more copies came into existence and the price came down. I think as more people continue to come into Lorcana and they want to get their hands on the kind of, we'll say, the most accessible chase card, right? I think that the 800 number for a raw copy is going to continue to go up, and I have it listed at a buy. There might be some more room in the short term for this card to go down. We might see it at 700, maybe even 600. I doubt we get a near mint copy for 500, unless it's like a Japanese one or maybe a Chinese one or just a different language variant. They're going to continue to or start to come out here, but I think it's in a great spot and definitely recommend it as a buy. Wrapping up, guys, we're going to fly through the last two. One of my favorite cards, once again, the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. This is a card that is in Set 2, Rise of the Floodborn. It is a very, very easy grade, or very, very hard grade at 44% gem mint rate. There are 730 in existence. And then in terms of percent change since July, we're up about 7% on the low side, almost 10% on the high side. Your PSA 10 low sale is up 30% since July, so a lot of change there, up quite a bit. But the high side is down. It's down 5.5% since July. So the high sale of 550 in November is down from the high sale that we saw in July, which is probably closer to 575, 600. Not down tremendously, but this card is the first Cinderella Enchanted. It's from, in my opinion, the most underprinted set, or the least printed, not underprinted, least printed set in existence. The card is very overpowered in the game. It's one of my favorite cards, but I think this is just art personified. I think that it is an amazing, amazing piece of cardboard. Absolutely gorgeous, and it's very playable on top of that. But it's a card that's graded relatively harshly at 44%, and a card that I think is going to command a significant premium as it gets further and further phased out, and we get further and further down the timeline and roadmap of Lorcana. I think this is going to be a mainstay. Wrapping up our presentation today, guys, 33 minutes in here. The Stitch Carefree Surfer from the first chapter. Once again, this is a card that I think has some collectability in terms of IP, artwork. This is kind of a fan favorite from the first chapter, but it's not one that's really in the meta. And so these prices are truly, in my opinion, reflective of the more collector's market more so than anything else. Low sale for October, $255. High sale, $370. November low sale down at $189. We haven't seen that for a long time. High sale of $288. When we look at percent change since July, that low sale down 23%. That one particular sale killed it. And then the high sale pretty much flat. PSA 10 count, 962 of these in existence, a 48% gem mint rate, which is very, very bad for the first chapter. This is the hardest card to grade, if I'm not mistaken, in the first chapter in terms of set cards. PSA 10 low sale, 540, PSA 10 high sale, 600, and that is 7% higher than than the low sale in July, but down 16% from the ceiling. Look at that $600 number. Sales were going for closer to 700, 800 back in July for a PSA 10 copy of this particular card. I do have it listed, as a buy because I think that this is, once again, same spot as Elsa. This card was very high. We saw the reprints and the restocks that came. It dropped the price down, and now it's been down for a while, and it's kind of still recovering. And so I think anytime you can get it at a relatively low price compared to its all-time highs, I think it makes a lot of sense. And so this is one that I would recommend going out and picking up right now. So with that being said, guys, 35-minute video. What a way to get back into it. Hopefully you guys like the video. Like I said, I know this information's a little bit outdated. Definitely should have been out, sooner than this, right? I had historically been very good about getting these out, but I wanted to get caught up. I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. And then once again, we'll get December out sooner rather than later, and then we'll get into more of a consistent rotation here moving forward. But for those of you guys who like these style of videos, I didn't want to leave you hanging on October and November. So with that being said, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for all the well wishes. I hope you all had an amazing Christmas, an amazing New Year's, and got some good reps in with the family, got to open some packs, and generally just had a great time. So we will be talking to you guys soon. Goodbye.